The lights of the AGT auditorium shimmer like stars scattered across a dark sky, each spotlight tracing along the massive crowd as they settle into their seats. People murmur in excitement, clutching popcorn, phones ready, waiting for the next act. The energy is buzzing, part anticipation, part boredom, part curiosity. Nobody knows what's coming next. Backstage, a slender Filipino man in his late 20s stands alone, just out of view. He's holding a microphone with both hands, gripping it tight as though it might slip away if he loosens his fingers even slightly. His outfit is simple: faded jeans, a scuffed pair of boots, and a black jacket that has clearly lived through many busking nights and long commutes. There's no flashy costume, no dramatic entrance planned. Just a man and his voice. A stagehand waves him forward. "You're up next," she says gently. He nods, breathes out, and steps into the blinding corridor that leads to the stage. Every footstep echoes in his ears, louder than the audience outside. This is the moment he's dreamed about, prayed for, feared, and chased for years. The curtain parts just enough for him to slip through. And then, the roar of the audience fades into a low hum, like the ocean heard through a window. He walks into full view. The spotlight hits him, the room notices him, and instantly, a shift begins. The crowd studies him with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. AGT sees thousands of performers, some polished, some eccentric, some unforgettable. He looks ordinary, a quiet, humble, almost nervous young man standing on one of the biggest stages in the world. The contrast is striking. Sofia Vergara glances at Heidi with a small smile, as if to say, "I hope he surprises us." Howie leans back in his chair, observing him like a puzzle piece he hasn't decoded yet. And Simon squints, analyzing, reading body language the way a musician reads notes on a sheet. Simon's expression is never easy to read, partly concerned, partly intrigued, partly doubtful. The man adjusts the mic, clears his throat quietly, and forces a small smile. He can feel thousands of eyes on him, but he tries not to let the weight crush him. "What's your name?" Simon asks, leaning slightly forward. His voice echoes across the silent hall. "My name is Elias," the contestant replies softly, his Filipino accent gentle but warm. "And what do you do?" Howie asks. I sing, mostly in the streets," Elias answers. "Some people call me Filipino Elvis." A ripple of laughter passes through the crowd, not cruel but amused. "Elvis? Really? That's a big comparison, almost impossible to live up to." Elias smiles shyly, lowering his eyes for a moment. He's used to that reaction. Every time he mentions the nickname, people laugh, smirk, or raise an eyebrow. He doesn't blame them. Elvis Presley is an icon, a legend, a voice carved into the world's memory. And here he is, a young man from Manila, standing on an American stage, trying to honor that legacy with nothing but heart and hope. "So, Elias," Simon says, folding his hands, "are you ready?" Elias takes a breath so deep it almost lifts his shoulders. "Yes, sir." "All right," Simon nods. "Let's hear it." The stage lights soften, tinting the auditorium in warm gold and amber. The massive screens behind him glow to life as the backing track begins with a slow, nostalgic guitar strum. It's a sound that hints at the 1950s, clean, vintage, iconic. And with that single chord, the air in the room tightens. Elias closes his eyes. He's no longer standing in front of thousands. He's back on the streets of Manila, singing for people who walk past him every day. He's back in the small living room where his grandfather taught him old records. He's back with the memories of nights he sang under flickering lamps while jeepneys rattled in the background. For a moment he feels it, his roots, his journey, his purpose. That's what steadies him. That's what keeps him upright. But from the outside, the scene is very different. To the audience, he's a quiet man standing so still it almost feels fragile. His fingers tremble just slightly. His breaths are sharp, controlled. He seems like someone caught between his dream and his fear, unable to turn back but terrified to move forward. The judges exchange micro-expressions, small hints of doubt, sympathy, curiosity. He doesn't look like someone who can command Elvis's presence. He doesn't look like someone who will blow them away. He looks like someone carrying years of struggle on thin shoulders. The moment stretches, the music builds. The first 10 seconds before he sings feel like an eternity. The camera zooms in on his face. eyes closed, brows soft, lips trembling slightly. In the audience, a teenager whispers, "He looks nervous." A middle-aged man crosses his arms skeptically. Someone else pulls out their phone, ready to record, just in case. Then Elias opens his eyes. They're steady now, focused, rooted in a kind of quiet determination that wasn't there a moment ago. He lifts the microphone closer to his mouth. The world holds its breath. This isn't just another audition. It's a crossroads, a moment where everything, his past, his struggle, his years of singing on street corners, converges into a single breath. He's about to reveal something no one in the room is expecting. The first notes of the backing track drift gently through the theater, echoing like an old vinyl record spinning in a quiet room. The melody is unmistakable, smooth, timeless, soaked in the golden warmth of the Elvis era. A soft hush falls over the audience, a collective pause, as if everyone senses that something important is about to happen. Elias stands perfectly still, the microphone raised but untouched by his voice. For a heartbeat, the world seems to hold its breath with him. His fingers tremble slightly against the mic. His shoulders rise and fall with one final steadying inhale. Then he parts his lips, and everything changes. The first note that slips out isn't timid or shaky or soft. It is deep, rich, velvet-heavy and warm like melted honey, a sound that seems far too powerful, far too polished, far too Elvis. To come from this quiet young man standing in worn boots and a simple jacket, a wave ripples through the auditorium. Simon Cowell's eyes snap open wider than anyone expects. He sits upright, elbows lifting off the table, his expression instantly transforming from polite skepticism to stunned alertness. Heidi's jaw drops, her eyes rapidly flicking between Elias and the other judges, as if searching for confirmation that she isn't imagining what she just heard. Sophia's eyebrows fly upward, her lips forming a silent, "Oh my God!" And Howie, normally the first to crack a joke, freezes. He leans forward, squinting, stunned into silence. His mouth opens slightly, then closes again, speechless. But the most dramatic reaction comes from the audience. In the first 3 seconds, people gasp. By 5 seconds, several stand halfway up from their seats without even realizing it. At 10 seconds, the room erupts. Cheers burst out like fireworks. Hands shoot into the air. A woman in the front row clutches her chest, tears already forming at the corners of her eyes. A man in the third row shakes his head violently, mouthing, "No way, no way, no way." Phones rise instantly as dozens of people begin recording. They know this is one of those moments, the kind that goes viral before the commercial break, the kind that becomes legend. And through all the noise, Elias keeps singing. His body remains almost perfectly still, but his voice fills the entire room like a sonic explosion. It's drenched in nostalgia, dripping with emotion, yet somehow unmistakably his. It's not an imitation, it's a resurrection, a rebirth, a voice that sounds like it was carved from vinyl, sharpened by heartbreak, and polished by years of singing to strangers who never knew his name. The vibrato is flawless, controlled, trembling with warmth, perfectly timed. The rasp is gentle but powerful, a smoky texture that wraps around every lyric. Each note vibrates through the theater, bouncing off walls, echoing through hearts. The audience is no longer merely watching him, they're experiencing him. Even the camera crew can't help but react. One operator briefly turns the camera onto the judges, capturing Simon whispering something under his breath that sounds astonishingly like, "Wow." 8 seconds in, the instrumental swells. 9 seconds in, Elias tilts his head slightly, pouring even more soul into the next note. And at exactly the 10-second mark, AGT explodes. The crowd roars like a stadium during a championship win. The floor vibrates beneath the stomping feet of hundreds of people losing their minds. The cheers drown out the music. People stand, clap, scream, cry, shout, whistle, every reaction colliding into a roaring wave of shock and admiration. Even security guards by the stage, a group known for staying stoic, turn their heads, eyebrows raised in awe. Elias's eyes briefly flick open. He sees the crowd, he sees the judges, he sees the glowing screens, the flashing lights, the faces twisted in disbelief. But he doesn't falter, he doesn't freeze, he doesn't crumble under the pressure. Instead, he sings even stronger, Every lyric comes from a place deep inside him, from nights singing on the streets where people hurried past without listening, from childhood days listening to old Elvis tapes with his grandfather, from dreams buried under years of hardship, now rising like flames. With each passing second, the room becomes more unhinged. At the far back, a teenage boy jumps onto his seat shouting, "This guy ice insane!" 3 rows from the front, a little girl waves her hands in the air like she's at a rock concert. A couple in their 60s look at each other in awe. This is the Elvis they grew up listening to, and yet, it's not. It's something new, something electric. Meanwhile, Sophia is visibly emotional. She places both hands on her chest, her face glowing with astonishment and joy. Heidi wipes the corner of her eye, smiling through tears. Howie is laughing, not from humor, but from pure disbelief. And Simon's entire posture has changed. Gone is the skeptical judge who saw just another audition. In his place is a man mesmerized, leaning forward, eyes locked onto Elias like he's witnessing something historic. The camera zooms into Simon's expression, a rare mix of shock, respect, and pure admiration. He even whispers something to himself. He's unbelievable. The performance continues, and every single note hits with precision and passion. Elias has the crowd wrapped around his voice, swinging them through nostalgia, thrilling them with power, and breaking them open with emotion. The AGT stage has seen thousands of performers, but in this moment, with this voice, this presence, this lightning strike talent, it feels like the show has discovered something iconic, something unforgettable, something once in a generation. And as Elias sings through the final moments of the verse, the crowd's energy only grows. People chant his name between breaths. Judges exchange astonished glances. The stage lights shimmer brighter as if responding to his voice. It is no longer just an audition. It is an eruption, a moment that will replay on millions of screens, a moment that the audience will tell stories about for years. And it all happened because of those first 10 seconds that no one, absolutely no one, expected. The music surges, lifting the room to its emotional peak as Elias steps into the strongest part of the song. But something is different now. Something deep and electric vibrates through the air. The audience is no longer just watching a contestant. They're witnessing a transformation. Elias, the quiet Filipino man who walked in with trembling hands and a shy voice, is now commanding the stage like a star reborn. His stance is firmer. His confidence glows through every note, and the room, every single person in the room, is locked on him as if time has stopped. When he hits the chorus, his voice opens up like thunder breaking through clouds, powerful, soulful, unmistakably Elvis, yet unmistakably him. The crowd loses control. A massive wave of cheers ripples from the front row to the highest seats. People rise as if pulled up by invisible strings. They scream, they clap, they cry. Even those who didn't know Elvis Presley's music feel the magic, because Elias isn't performing a tribute. He's reviving an era. The camera crew scrambles to capture everything, close-ups of tearful faces, jaws hitting the floor, hands covering mouths in disbelief. The production team backstage turns to each other with wide eyes, already whispering, "This is going viral, this is the one. Replay that, now." The judges, each overwhelmed in their own way, react with the raw honesty of people who've been hit by something they did not expect. Sophia is the first to stand. Her hands clasped together, her face shining with a mixture of pride and astonishment. She sways along to the music. She looks like she's watching a miracle unfold. Heidi wipes tears from her cheeks again and again. At one point, she mouths, "Beautiful," unable to contain how deeply the performance is hitting her. Her expression softens into motherly awe, overwhelmed by emotion. Howie presses a hand against the table, shaking his head over and over with a disbelieving grin. "This is insane," he mutters, though no one can hear him over the storm of applause and music. And Simon Cowell stands, slowly, deliberately. The audience sees it, the camera catches it. A wave of screams rushes through the room as Simon rises because people know. Simon doesn't stand for just anyone. He stands only when he feels it, when the moment is bigger than the show, when talent strikes him straight through the chest. He's speechless, eyes locked on Elias, mouth parted in awe. And yet, Elias keeps going, pouring everything, his past, his hope, his struggles, into the last section of the song. Every note soars higher than the one before it. The theater lights begin to dance around him, syncing with the beat, as if the room itself is performing alongside him. The track builds toward the final line. Elias leans slightly forward. His hand trembles again, not from fear, but from passion, from the force of what he's releasing. Then he delivers it. A final note, powerful, raw, impossibly clean, held with perfect control and emotion. It slices through the air, ringing across the massive auditorium like a lightning strike that refuses to fade. Silence drops for one single millisecond. Then, the auditorium explodes. The crowd erupts into the loudest roar of the night. People jump, they scream, they wave their hands. A few fans rush toward the stage before security steps forward, though even the guards themselves are smiling with pride. The sound is deafening, echoing off the walls like the inside of a volcano. Elias lowers the mic slowly, trembling from adrenaline. His chest rises and falls in quick, overwhelmed breaths. He looks around, at the lights, the stage, the judges, the screaming fans, and disbelief floods his face. His lips quiver as though he might cry. This is not a dream. This is real. This is happening. He covers his face with one hand, just for a moment, just to steady himself. The judges' panel glows with flashing lights as the crowd chants, "Elias! Elias! Elias!" He drops his hand again, smiling through the tears he tried to hide. The judges sit in stunned silence before the applause drowns everything. Sophia is the first to speak, shouting above the noise. "Whew! That was amazing!" The audience screams, louder in agreement. Heidi leans forward, still wiping tears. "Your voice, I mean how? How is this real?" She laughs through her sobs. Howie, punching the air, yells, "You just took us back in time and made it better." Then it's Simon's turn. The room falls silent, waiting. Simon looks at Elias with an unreadable expression. He places one hand on the panel, leans closer, and, for a long moment, just stares. Finally, he speaks, in a quiet, stunned tone that carries more weight than shouting ever could. "That was one of the most extraordinary auditions I've ever seen on this stage." The crowd erupts again. Simon lifts a finger, pointing at Elias, his voice sharper now. "You didn't just sing Elvis. You became Elvis, but you also became something I didn't know I needed, a new star." The audience shouts. Heidi claps wildly. Sophia presses both hands over her heart. Howie nods vigorously. Elias tries to speak, but the tears finally come. He lowers his head, overwhelmed. The chants begin again, stronger, louder, unified. "Elias! Elias! Elias!" Sophia calls out, "You deserve this moment. Enjoy it." Elias steps back, eyes shining, voice trembling with gratitude. He bows deeply. And in that moment, under the blinding stage lights, the roaring applause, the stunned faces of the judges, a simple street singer from Manila becomes something else entirely. A star born in real time, a legend in the making, a story the world will replay again and again.